Do you ever wonder what Dana Holgorsen does during his downtime in the summer? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins.
Okay, welcome in. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone. It is Monday, June 23rd. Nebraska's busy stretch from this month is essentially over. The College World Series is over. Connor, how do you feel about that?
I am sick, so I'm glad that it's over.
Yeah, you caught the summer cold that I had. Is this from the air conditioning of the lovely Charles Schwab Field press box that did this to you, or did you catch it from some animal from Louisiana that brought it up here?
I don't spend much time in the air conditioning at the Chuck box during the College World Series, but I imagine it's just a combination of lack of sleep and being outside and hot all the time and being like worn out. So it happened last year too.
Yeah, I had this when I came back from vacation a couple of weeks ago, and it just lingered, just ended up blowing my nose a lot. So nice. Hopefully that's all that it is for you too. It stinks. It was 100 degrees outside and you have a cold. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So we are going to talk today about a sit down that I had last week with Dana Holgorsen, Nebraska's offensive coordinator, who's 8 months onto the job. I got to go into his office in the middle of last week and look out over the practice fields that sit next to the Osborne Legacy Complex and the Hawks Championship Center. And let me tell you, Dana's office has got a nice view. He's got a balcony on his out the door of his office, and it was raining on this day. And Dana's like, he says to me, "I don't care about the rain. I don't care about the heat. I don't care about the cold here in Lincoln when I have to walk to work and it's 20 below. I just love being here. I love being out of Houston." He's just a happy guy to be in the place that he's at, where he gets to sit down every day and go to his computer or walk up to the big giant whiteboard on the wall that covers an entire wall in his office and just write up plays and do installs, schedule out installs that Nebraska is going to put into place when camp opens on July 27th. He said that by the time he left Lincoln on Sunday, which is yesterday, that he would have the entire first week of preseason camp scripted and ready to go. So he doesn't really have to give much of a care in the world to what's going to happen with this Nebraska football team over the next month. It's all Dana time now through the month of July. And we want to kind of get into that today.
Well, before we do that, I do love that. I mean, some coaches, they get fired and they're bitter and it's, they're trying to get back to there. And maybe, who knows, maybe Dana Holgorsen ends up being a head coach one day. Although I feel like I doubt it at this point, given how happy he seems to be. Just
kind of seems that he is where he wants to be. Yeah.
Yeah. There are some coaches who just are built, to call the plays. And there are some coaches who are built to be overseers of the program and who are better at that job and are better at that part of it. Honestly, I think Scott Frost is a lot like Dana Holgorsen in the idea that he just wants to call the plays. And then, had to do a lot more when he was the head coach at Nebraska. So I think this is great. It feels like an awesome position for Dana to be in. I don't know that Dana, and we'll talk about some of what he's up to over the next month here in a second, but I don't think you're going to take that away from him no matter what, but he could kind of relax and say, yeah, I'm doing my job. I'm going to do it really well. I like a lot of the pieces that I have. I've been given kind of autonomy of the offense. It just feels like he's in a really good spot.
We saw during the Pinstripe Bowl, and we've talked about this some on the show, ABC put a graphic on the television of the places that Dana Holgorsen traveled between the time that he was fired at Houston in November of 2023 up until the time that Matt Rhule plucked him out of no man's land first week in November 2024. And it was a long list of exotic places in Europe. And I think he put Salt Lake City on there, which was very, very random.
That's right. Yeah.
Maybe a spot in Georgia to go relive some of his early coaching roots. He went to Valdosta between stops in Milan and Rome.
Yeah, nice.
So that's kind of the vibe that I got for what. Now he doesn't have a whole year this time. There's limited amount of time. He's got about 4 weeks, and some of this was planned for him. Yesterday, Dana Holgorsen got on a plane and he went from Lincoln or Omaha to Key West, Florida, probably landed in Miami, and made the drive down to Key West. And this place is special to him because it was the unofficial home, the home away from home. Maybe it just became the home of Mike Leach. And Holgorsen first went to Key West with Mike Leach when they were together at Valdosta State with Hal Mumme. This came after their time at Iowa Wesleyan when Mumme was the head coach. And it was really the birth of what we know today as the air raid offense. It has roots at Iowa Wesleyan, of all places, when Mumme and Leach were together on a staff. And Dana Holgorsen played wide receiver for the two of them. Then they joined forces and coached at Valdosta State. And they went to Key West. And Leach continued to go to Key West. So what's happening this week in Key West, and this is fascinating, and I can't wait until we get an opportunity to see this, when Eli Manning, of all people, allows us to see this. So if you're familiar with the Mannings, which I think if you're listening to the show, you probably are, as most people in America would be.
Yeah.
You know about Peyton's Places, and he's done this sort of, I don't know, fun documentary style look at spots that involve people in football, I guess is the best way to put it.
He just goes places and interacts with people. That's it.
And Eli's taken this up, and he's got Eli's Places now, which is a production of ESPN Plus and NFL Films. And this week, he's on location with Dana Holgorsen and Hal Mumme and Cliff Kingsbury, the former Texas Tech head coach, now offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders, in Key West. And the way Dana described it to me, they're going to go around to bars and some other spots and tell stories about Mike Leach. How awesome is that?
Incredible. They're going to basically retrace the steps of Mike Leach. There's a bunch of great stories out there about like these guys in particular and what they did while they were there. This is really cool. I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be really fun. I don't think, like, for people who are looking to pick up insight on Nebraska football or whatever, like, I don't think there'll be any of that. But it's funny too, because like you said, this all ties back to the air raid offense. That's what these guys are kind of known for. But in talking to Dana Holgorsen, since he's been the offensive coordinator at Nebraska, he's talked a lot about like, hey, I'm kind of done with that. We're going to try and slow things down, and we don't have to throw it every play. And I realize that I have a team that I have to kind of, make it work for and stuff like that. So it's cool that he still has that in his back pocket too. He's such a fascinating character.
He said to me that, and he talks with Kingsbury and some others, Lincoln Riley, although we didn't, Dana was unclear if Lincoln Riley was going to be with him in Key West. It sounded like perhaps not. These guys, they got together after Mike Leach died at age 61 in 2022, late 2022. They got together at Leach's memorial service and said, hey, we need to do something more. Like, we need to go somewhere and just kind of celebrate Leach. And so that's like where this was born, and how Eli and his production company caught wind of that and were able to put this together. I don't know. That's another story.
Yeah.
But this was born out of an idea that came from Leach's memorial service. And Dana says to me, I still talk to Cliff a lot, and he said I was texting with Cliff recently, and he asked me if I still use the Y cross in my offense, just a route that's effective, apparently, in the air raid. And Dana says, absolutely, So he doesn't run the air raid, but he runs principles of the air raid and builds his offense around some of those principles. He likes to say that Leach kicked him out of the air raid club several years ago when he started using fullbacks and tight ends and things that Mike Leach never did. Dana says that Lincoln has changed and Cliff has changed and Dana has changed. But the thing about Leach, and I'm sure they'll talk about this during this stay in Key West, is that Mike Leach never changed.
Never.
And that's what was so unique and so great about him, is that he was just the same person when he was 35 as he was when he was 60. And he just loved to walk around Key West and just talk to people. So they'll be doing a little bit of that. From there, Dana's going to go with his son, Logan, to Austria for the Austrian Grand Prix F1 race, because Dana's son is a big F1 fan. So they're going to go check that out. He's going to hang out in the Swiss Alps while in Austria. Dana said he might just hop over to Italy or Greece and spend a week there before coming back across the Atlantic. Doesn't know, not quite sure about that. Yeah. And he'll definitely be in Cabo at some point in the month of July because they have a wedding to plan. His son is getting married there next summer. So Dana's going to take his son and his two daughters who are in Houston to Cabo to just hang and plan the wedding for next summer.
I love the fact that he's doing we talk about this on sports radio all the time. The idea that, hey, if you got fired and you got a $15 million buyout, what would you do? I'd just go on vacation for forever. And Dana is doing that, and he's still coaching football, which is a thing that he loves, in designing plays and trying to help people in their maturation process and stuff like that. So he's kind of on his own schedule, but he has this ability to to have full autonomy on the offense, and ultimately it's his deal whenever he comes back. But when he's not there, and when he's not required to be there by Nebraska, which is right now through basically, starting to training camp, he's gonna enjoy the fact that he got $15 million lumped on his doorstep one day by the University of Houston.
You can bet that. Oh yeah, he's in a good place, literally and figuratively, right now. And you can bet that when he talked to Matt Rhule about taking this job, that he needed assurances that he would be allowed to enjoy this short period, this short stretch of the year. So when we come back, we'll talk more about Dana's thoughts on this football team, and more about what he's doing over the next month too. That's when we come back on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
But first, a word from our friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA Finals, they are over. It ended last night. So we head into the summer sports calendar, of course, before football starts up. So daily baseball, golf, high-stakes soccer. FanDuel's got you covered, and they have the ability to make every game even more exciting. So you're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. That's right. This is a good thing for you. So FanDuel will track your favorite matchups, whatever you have. I love to do, baseball. They call them Nerfies, no runs in the first inning, or players to hit home runs and stuff like that. It's all in there on FanDuel. So you check that out right now, or you could create yourself a same game parlay. So you could sweat a baseball game out. Baseball is a passive watching sport, so why not make it not so much and sweat it out a little bit in the summer? FanDuel makes you feel like you are a part of the action. Now, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. I could already hear people listening. I could already sense people listening to this conversation that we've had and about Dana Holgorsen. And they're probably thinking, wait, hold on. Our offensive coordinator isn't going to be here for the next month. What is he? Is he checked out? What's going on? And like the answer to that is no. And the fact of the matter is Nebraska really doesn't have much going on for the next several weeks.
The players do. The players do.
Yeah.
So the coaches have been with the players for June. And to recap what June has been, it's been one wild stretch of camps after OTAs and recruiting visits and you name it. Nebraska's football staff, and I've heard this from more than one coach, are busier in the 3-week stretch that starts around June 1st than any 3-week stretch in the year. It's a little crazy to say when you say like during the season. Yeah, I mean during the season,
November.
Yeah. During the season, they're solely focused on game planning and all of the stuff that goes into that. They spend more hours in the office in June than at any time in the year, at least during these first 3 weeks of June. And now that we're at June 23rd, it's kind of over, but it's not for the players. So the coaches and the players have been on the field in these OTAs. They get 8 hours a week, whether it's meeting room time or on the field. And they break it down into like these 30-minute OTA sessions, which do not include hitting. There's no pads. It's like, for the offense at least, it's like running routes, going through progressions, the pre-snap motion stuff that they do. It's like review and reinstallation of the things that they learned in the spring. And Holgorsen says it's a very valuable time, especially valuable for players who are new to the program, like Jeremiah Jones, who is one of the players that came up when I talked to Holgorsen, because he was giving an example, and he used Cortez Mills as an example, another true freshman wide receiver. And Holgorsen said, Mills came in and he was swimming. His head was spinning back in February when we went through some of this OTA stuff the first time and started to talk about installs. And then in the spring, like he started to figure some things out. And now that they got into June, Cortez Mills is ready to play a game. Well, Jeremiah Jones is like 6 months behind. He's another freshman wide receiver, big-bodied, somebody that they really think was a find for them. And he's starting to get his feet wet in the Nebraska offensive terminology and installation so that he's more prepared when into July comes around. But over the next 5 weeks, the players are kind of going to be in the hands of Corey Campbell, the strength coach, and Dylan Raiola. To be honest with you, if you're an offensive guy, he's somewhat in charge. So while Dana Holgorsen is going to be out in Europe or in Mexico or Key West, wherever it might be, selling a house in Houston that was on the top of his list, something he needed to do over this stretch, the players will still be here. And they're going to be going through what is a very strenuous period of their off-season training. Doesn't involve a lot of football, but it involves them potentially getting stronger and ready for the start of camp, which is 1 month before the season opener.
Also, Dana Holgorsen is handshake memeing with the kids out there who don't want to get their driver's license and drive. Dana Holgorsen is allowed to drive, but he does not want a car. He does not want the ability to drive. He's, as you described it to me, Mitch, he could have had a car and said, no, I don't think you understand. I really don't want to have a car in Lincoln. Yeah. He just walks over from his loft downtown to the football facility, and that's the story.
Yeah, it's carried over from Houston. When he was let go by the Cougars, he was in possession of a car that was given to him as part of his deal, and the dealer came back to get it from him and used that as an opportunity, that conversation as an opportunity to try to sell Dana a car. Well, and Dana said, no, I don't want a car. So the dealer said, well, if you can just keep this one. Yeah, you need a car. You can it's Houston. You can keep this one if you want. Go ahead. And Dana said, no, you don't understand. I don't want a car. And that's how he's living. That's how he's living in Nebraska. Walks to work. It's about a mile from from down in the Haymarket where he stays. And he does it if it's 20 below. He does it when it's a day like Saturday, which was his birthday, by the way, and it's 100 degrees and the humidity is 79% at 8 a.m. He's all right. Like, he uses that walking time to kind of clear his mind. And he went through some stuff with me about how the sunlight in the early hours of the day is best for a person. And he's kind of like Leach in that he likes to walk. Mike Leach famously would walk to work from his house in Pullman, Washington, when he coached at Washington State. So he couldn't do that in Lubbock, apparently, because he lived 5 miles from the stadium. But one day, Dana said Leach pulled up to work on his bike. Well, he didn't exactly pull up to work on his bike. He came to work with blood all over his arm and carrying his bike. And Dana was going out for like a morning coffee and said to Leach, "What happened?" And Leach is like, "Somebody tried to run me off the road." So I guess he had lost the game the Saturday night before that. But yeah, a lot of channeling Mike Leach, a lot of a lot of just Dana being Dana. And then when it comes to the offense and what he sees as far as the progression from the time that he arrived last November until now, the words that he used to describe the progress were night and day. So that's something for Nebraska fans to actually be excited about and taking away from this conversation if you don't really care about Key West and the Swiss Alps.
You should, though. It's a great story. I would encourage people to read it. It's up on The Athletic. There's fantastic stuff in there. Also, I really enjoyed this idea. I mean, this is all happening in confluence with before we take a break here. Matt Rhule has been very, very, very public over the last couple of weeks. He's been very everywhere. Yeah. He is on top of a bull inside of the weight room, right? He is cooking burgers at the College World Series. He's taking pictures with everybody he could find, doing his hand gesture thing. Dana Holgorsen is nowhere, and that is awesome. Like Matt, it just feels like Matt Rhule is like gathering up all of the regular public appearances for everybody else, and he says, "I'll take them. That's fine. Take a picture of me on the cow inside of the weight room."
Yeah, Holgorsen went to the College World Series one day with his son. Actually, may have went twice. I think he said he went with Rhule one day. But you're right. You don't see him. Rhule hogs the camera, and that is today's CEO / head coach. At least at Nebraska, it is. And the guys in the background, your Phil Snow and John Butler and Dana Holgorsen, the people, Mike Eckler, the people who are at the highest level of this coaching staff, they all seem totally cool with Matt Rhule being the guy who's riding the bull, taking pictures with recruits, because that allows them, and I think Rhule totally understands this, that allows them to go into their offices and coach and be with recruits on campus and go to the camps and talk to the young kids who may at some point be prospects for Nebraska. Like, this is all a plan that Nebraska has, and just in the little microcosm as you look at like what Matt Rhule and Dana Holgorsen have been doing over the last 2 weeks, it's an excellent illustration of that plan being put into action.
All right, let's step aside here for a second. We'll be back with some final thoughts after this.
Okay, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone. Last segment on this Monday, June 23rd, the second to last Monday in the month of June. We are, every year at the end of the College World Series, you look up, at least for me, and I'm sure for you, since you're out there immersed in it, you look up when it's over, and it's over a day early, thankfully, a day earlier than it could have been. Nothing against Coastal Carolina, but whoever wins the opening game of the College World Series finals is always a heavy, heavy, heavy favorite in my mind to win the second game. Because if I don't have to go out there on Monday night, that's a win for me.
It hasn't happened a lot. We've gotten a lot of 3-game series recently. So shout out to LSU for getting that job done yesterday. Taking another day would have been very, very difficult, especially with the weather that we have on tap today here in Omaha. I think there's some rain coming up. I know there was some discussions about what to do with that third game. Should it have to be played, but we did not cross that bridge. Do we have any thoughts on on Angel Campos and his ejection of Coastal Carolina coach Kevin Schnall yesterday?
Yeah, so this happened in the bottom of the first inning. Kevin Schnall, unfortunately, this is the head coach, first-year head coach from Coastal Carolina, who guided the Chanticleers to 56 wins this year, a program record, most ever by a rookie head coach. So he's quite a story in his own right. And in the bottom of the first inning, one of his players was batting. There were 2 outs. There was a runner on second base. And his first base coach said something about balls and strikes. And it's kind of off limits for assistant coaches to complain about much of anything in the course of a game. Some umpires have more tolerance for it. Angel Campos did not. So he issued a warning to Coastal Carolina, as is standard procedure when you get when a coach receives a warning. The head coach, if an assistant coach receives a warning, the head coach receives a warning, and he's kind of on, you're on notice. Well, there were 25,000 people there, and it was a little bit hard to hear. And Schnall said, what did you say? And he said, you got a warning for your coach arguing balls and strikes. And then Schnall stepped up at the top of the dugout, and he said, because you missed 3 calls, and that got him ejected. The head coach in the national championship game got ejected. So then he ran out on the field, and a fracas ensued, and the second base umpire tumbled to the ground. It was crazy for a minute. And when the dust settled, Schnall would not have been on the field coaching tonight, and he's going to have to serve a 2-game suspension at the start of next season. He was very hot after the game.
Oh boy.
So
he's like a tense guy. Yes. I mean, he's not afraid to speak his mind. Like, he's talked a lot over the week about how, his team doesn't get enough credit and whatever. It's like, we're in a great spot, where they had won 26 games in a row going into the final. Like, he's right. So he's a really strong advocate for his program.
He flat out called out the Florida coach, who's been to 9 College World Series during the regional.
Yeah, people forget that was just a couple weeks ago. And he was yelling at his grounds crew apparently. So
Sullivan and the Florida coach was yelling at some administrators from Coastal during the regional, and Schnall was having none of that.
Ooh. Yeah. So let me just say that I've really enjoyed being around Coach Schnall this week. Like,
so did
I like his attitude. Like his tenseness. But let me just say, being down there at that moment, it was like it was a cauldron of emotion. The inning before that, there was some shouting in between dugouts. There was coaches that were yelling at each other, like we're talking about in the top of the first, because Schnall was ejected in the bottom of the first. So
what were they yelling about in the top of the first?
I couldn't figure it out. They were yelling at each other from across the dugout. That means over Angel Campos. So he's already sort of like aware of this, like, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's 25,000 LSU people. Like, it's 180 degrees. We have a situation on our hands. Now, with that being said, he was way too quick on the trigger. I mean, you don't need to throw people out in the national championship game. Or in the national championship series for that, or really at any point. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was a major league umpire and had a notorious quick trigger for tossing guys out, and ejected a Clemson player 2 years ago for showing too much emotion in a super regional game. So he was quick on the trigger, and I think everybody would agree with that. To be honest with you,
so it would be better if that didn't happen. It would have been better if that didn't happen. If your coach is in that situation and you're a fan, you are irate about the fact that the game was changed at that juncture because Schnall wanted an explanation and got a little bit upset that his first base coach had been warned. There's a much better way to handle that from behind the plate if you're Campos. Now, by the letter of the law, what Schnall did warranted an ejection. But in that moment, discretion could have and should have been used. Anyway,
Just go back to the dugout. Just tell him tell him to go back to the dugout, and that could be the end of it. Okay. Do we have anything else to finish this thing off?
For sure we do. There's your 5 minutes. on the dozens of hours that your two hosts here have spent at the College World Series over the last week. What I was going to say at the beginning of this is always when I look up at the end of the College World Series and I'm like, oh my God, it is the 4th of July next week. So that's where my head is at as it's Monday morning. Like I just had this realization on Monday morning that the 4th of July is next week. And I don't know what to think. Like I cannot comprehend that at this
point. I find it maybe we get to July. So maybe we got like a week left before this. So I don't know where this week stands in time, but I always say like, I am okay when we get to July, or maybe even like the Major League All-Star game, which is always the second Tuesday in July. I'm okay with starting to count down. I'm okay. And people are probably okay with starting to count down the second the season ends. But now is where we slowly start to turn our attention to football, even though there's not like a whole lot going on over the next couple weeks. You probably won't hear a lot from inside the program over the next couple weeks. But I think we could start turning our attention a little bit toward the schedule and the season and Kansas City and all those things.
Vegas, one of the biggest, that's the Big Ten side of Big Ten Media Days, July 22nd through the 24th. So
one month away.
1 month from right now. To finish, there will be some developments over the next few weeks, and it's going to involve recruiting. So Nebraska picked up 3 commitments in the month of June. And let's just say, like all the work that Nebraska coaches did in the month of June when it comes to recruiting, whether it's in a camp or an official visit, you don't see that quite yet. 3 commits is a modest number. That work, like the dividends from that work, the expectation is that it's shown over the next 6 months as Nebraska gets through this football season and in the next 2 years, because there were many 2027 and 2028 prospects on campus. But Nebraska did get a commitment Friday from tight end Luke Sorensen of Anaheim, California. It also picked up a commit from offensive lineman Hayden Ainsworth of Biloxi, Mississippi. So they're up to 6 for the class of 2026. And then today, on Monday, you have a running back from Charlotte, North Carolina, Jamal Rhule, who is set to announce his commitment. He was on campus this month in Lincoln. And the same with 4-star corner Danny Odom out of Orlando. So there's a quick update on what's happening with Nebraska football recruiting as we head toward July.
Yeah, they need to pick it up. I know that it's going to be a smaller class this year, but they need to start getting some commits and some feel-good stuff going on in the recruiting world as we get closer toward the season starting. All right, that's it for us today. Join us again tomorrow. Should have a full week of podcasts for you guys, so stay tuned. And thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out The Portal Show with Brian Smith. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.